everybody. In today's video, I'm counting down the top 5 best Arizona towns to buy a cabin or a vacation home in 2025. Now, I have done a variation of this video in the past, and there are some towns that I have dropped off of the list that were on previous videos. Now, stay all the way to the end. I'm going to review why I did drop certain towns from the list just for this year, and I will go over all the pros and cons of why I think these 5 towns are the best ones in Arizona to buy a second home, vacation home, or a cabin. The channel is Living in Northern Arizona, where I'll teach you everything there is to know about living in the Northern Arizona towns. My name is Dawn Dickinson, and I am a licensed real estate agent in the state of Arizona. So if you ever have a question about buying or selling a home, please reach out to me. I will get back to you. My contact information is always in the description below. All right, to start my list today, I am putting Payson at number 5. Now, Payson is a nice town at about 5,000 foot elevation, so that puts you in the cooler climate. The other thing that's very nice about it is in the pines. You see a lot of nice ponderosa pines, so there are a lot of nice things to do. You could go hiking, you could go sightseeing, bird watching, motorcycle riding, biking, all those fun things that people like to do, especially in the summertime. Another pro to buying a home in Payson is that home prices are lower than any of the towns on this list, and also the cost of living is just a little bit lower, and the amenities are plentiful in Payson, so it might be someplace to consider if you are looking for a second home. Now, some of the cons to Payson is it's a little bit hard to get to if you're coming from Phoenix. If you live on the west side, the 87 sometimes gets very congested. This is Memorial Day weekend. I saw that it was closed on Friday because of an accident. There's one, it's not the only way in there, but it's probably the best way in there. So it's a little bit difficult to get to, especially if you're living in like Glendale or Peoria. If you live in Scottsdale or Mesa, it might not be so bad, but I am not a fan of the route to get to Payson from Phoenix. So if you're coming from a different town, maybe it'd be okay, but a little bit difficult to get to. So some of the things to know about Payson is the elevation is 4921 foot above sea level, so it's about 5,000 above sea level, so you get the nice cool summers, but not yet as cold as, say, Flagstaff or White Mountains would be. Cost of living index, they have it at 92.4, which means it's slightly lower than national average. National average is 100. So Payson, the only town on this list with a lower cost of living than the national average. Let me give you a little bit of an example when we're talking about homes. So one nice thing about Payson too is there are a lot of variety of homes. You could get a single family home or a cabin. You could get a manufactured home, you could get a condo, you could get a manufactured home in a park. So you do have lots of choices. The other thing is Payson is actually a real town. Some of the times I talk about towns that are very small, like Happy Jack or Heber Overgaard or even Mormon Lake, and there are not a lot of amenities because it's a tiny, tiny town, but Payson actually is a real town, and you could do stuff like go to the Home Depot, grocery stores, lots of shopping, things that you need, auto mechanics, title companies. So Payson is an actual town. So population is about just over 16,000 residents, higher median age than some of the other towns. But let me give you an example of home prices to give you just a relevance to some of the home prices on other towns on the list. The median list price for a home in Payson is $549,000. Now, I'm also going to conclude there's Payson and there's Pine and Strawberry, which are also the towns if you continue to go north past Payson. I also include Pine and Strawberry in the list, but they're very small, so I'm not going to give you some separate statistics for those towns, except, for instance, Pine has a median list price of homes at $594. So Pine, again, slightly more expensive than Payson. Payson median list $549,000, where Pine is $594,000. Also, price per square foot on a list in Payson is $304 and Pine slightly higher at $377 per square foot. Now the rent, if you're thinking of renting in Payson, about $2,500 a month, and the market action index is 27. So let me go a little more detail on that because I'm going to use it again. Market Action Index just says how balanced the market is. The real estate market is a seller's market. Is it a buyer's market? And 30 is about a balance. So Market Action Index of 27 means Payson has now become a little bit of a buyer's market. So this is a shift because in recent years it has been a seller's market across the board, but Payson is one of the towns on my list that's considered a buyer's market. So it could be a very good time for you to buy a vacation home in Payson or a cabin in Payson right now. So a little more stats on Payson. The crime rate for violent crime is 18.5, which is lower than the national average of 22.7, and it's good if you're buying a vacation home to have a lower crime because you don't want to be gone and have your house be broken into or vandalized or any of those things. Now, I was just talking about violent crime. If you talk about property crime a little bit higher than national average. It's showing it at 42, where the national average is about 33.5. So that's a little bit disturbing. The weather, though, quite nice. Rain, probably get about 22 inches of rain in Payson, about 15 inches of snowfall. So you get a little bit of snowfall, but it's not so much that you're always worried about snow. The temperature, the high in July, about 90 degrees, which is quite a contrast if you're coming from Phoenix, say. The low in January, about 26 degrees. So lots of nice stuff to do in Payson. It's a quaint little town, small town, small population, not too far from Phoenix. Now, I did complain it's a little bit difficult to get there because the road, the 87, is kind of windy and narrow. In a lot of places, it's, one lane. So annoying road, but really only about an hour and a half, 2 hours from Phoenix, so that's a good thing. Okay, at number 2 on my list for a cabin or vacation home, I am putting Prescott. Now, Prescott is another town where it's actually a real town. There's pretty much anything you would want in Prescott. So you could also have a vacation home. You could decide to move there in your older years if you would buy a vacation home now and then come closer to the time of retirement. It's actually a very good spot for people who are thinking of retiring. Now, the pros of Prescott, there are lots of outdoor activities to do. It's at just above 5,000 elevation, so it is another mountain town. You have a lot of beautiful views. You have the Ponderosa Pines. Lots of outdoor activities, hiking, biking, lakes, wildlife, and it's, of course, a regular town, so that is convenient. Now, there are a couple of cons to Prescott. One is this weird obsession that some of the locals have about how you pronounce their town. If you say Prescott, like I like to say, because that's phonetically correct, they could have a cow because they like you to pronounce it Prescott. So there's some people are so obsessed with how you pronounce their town that one time I got a phone call at 1:30 a.m. for someone to chew me out that I was pronouncing the town Prescott in my videos rather than Prescott, how that person wanted me to decide or how to pronounce it. And the phone rings at 1:30. I let it go to voicemail, but I actually thought that hospice was calling to say my mother had passed away. So if you are worried about people being so pedantic that they will call you up and chew you out at 1:30 a.m. for pronouncing their town incorrectly, you might want to avoid it. But there are still many other positives about Prescott. One of the other negatives, I would say, the Bradshaw Mountains. Bradshaw Mountain, very beautiful, scenic. To me, it's a little bit scary. I actually suspect they are haunted. There was a fatal bear attack in the Bradshaw Mountains a couple of years ago, the first time in Arizona history in like 11 years. I have gone there to show properties, gotten lost. I got separated once from my clients. I'm driving around Bradshaw Mountains. I can't get out. The sun is about to go down. I'm about crying, thinking they're going to have to send out a search crew to find me. And thinking I'm going to have to spend the night in the woods and freezing cold when I actually intercepted my buyers again and we got out of the mountains. So I am not a fan of the Bradshaw Mountains. Now, there are many cabins, very nice scenic cabins within the Bradshaw Mountains, kind of very far off town. A lot of them are off-grid, though. Off-grid, a lot of them are very old, need a lot of work. A lot of them don't have water. You have to have a well. The real negative right now, though, about buying a cabin deep in the Bradshaw Mountains and say like the Potato Patch area is people are having a hard time getting homeowners insurance because of fire risk. So that's another thing. One more thing is high cost of living, high property purchase price. So let me give you a little bit of details about that. The median list price in Prescott, and not Prescott, median list price is $826,000, which puts you at about $365 a square foot. Median rent, $2,500. Market action index though is at 41. So Prescott's still a bit of a seller's market, so keep that in mind. It is beautiful there. Elevation of about 5374. They get about 16 inches of rainfall, about 13 inches of snowfall. So again, you get some snow, not nearly as barreling down as in Flagstaff. High temperature in the summertime, about 89. Low in the winter, about 25. So Prescott is a very nice destination. Also, if you're thinking of maybe retiring later on, that would be a really good choice for a cabin or a second home. I just would stay clear of deep in the Bradshaw Mountains. But if you really want to be isolated, don't listen to me because I do tend to get lost any place that I haven't been to 400,000 times. So Prescott I have at number 4 on the best places in Arizona to buy a cabin or vacation home. And number 3, I have Munns Park. I love Munns Park. Munns Park, about 15-20 minutes away from Flagstaff, just south of Flagstaff. It's about 35 minutes north of me where I live in Sedona, Arizona. So a very nice location, not quite all the way to Flagstaff, but that could be a plus. So some of the pluses about Munns Park, of course, it is a mountain town. There are lots of things to do. Beautiful ponderosa pines. Munns Park has great amenities. You've got a golf course, you have several restaurants, gas stations, lots of different variety of choices for cabins. You have the site-built cabins, you have manufactured homes on their own piece of land, you actually have some very nice townhomes there, you have AG's barbecue, which I really love. You can also get like a park model in a park where you have a lot lease land fee, and I don't know what the fee is now. It used to be about $3,800 for the entire season, which was 6 months. It's probably gone up since I've checked, but you can buy a nice park model in the little park there. You probably can pick one of those up from like $90,000 to $120,000. So many choices in cabin prices. Now you can get short-term rentals in Munns Park, and that is a pro and a con. The pro is, hey, if you're only going to be there a couple times over the summer, you could rent out your property as a short-term rental. Now the con, of course, that means if you are buying a vacation home in Munns Park, you could have short-term rentals all around you. And other thing that I do like about Munns Park is I do see a lot of the side-by-sides for, riding around. In the wintertime, you see snowmobiles riding around, lots to do, hiking, fishing, or just going to Flagstaff. Now another pro is that you could live in Munns Park and you could commute to Flagstaff if you work there or if you are a college student. So the other con, sorry, I'm mixing the pros and cons up, but another con, of course, it's very cold in the wintertime, lots of snow, and the prices are still high compared to some of the other towns. So the elevation in Munns Park are just about 6,900, so close to 7,000. Crime is favorable, lower than the national average on both violent and property crime. Violent crime at 21.3, rating versus 22.7. Now, I don't know how they come up with this rating. It's on bestplaces.net, but the rating just relative to the national average. So it's lower than the national average on property crime. Also, which is 33.6 versus the national average at 35.4. Temperature, probably high in July, about 82, low over the winter about 14. You get about 21 inches of rain. Similar snowfall to Flagstaff at about 80 inches. Now, if you go to bestplaces.net, they've got it totally wrong on the snowfall and the temperature. They're saying 12 inches. Well, they got that confused with Sedona, because that's about what we get in Sedona. Same thing with the temperature. So I know it's closer to Flagstaff because the elevation is just about on par, and probably gets more snow than Flagstaff. Honestly, the snow there is very deep, which makes it a great attraction if you are into the winter sports. And also, if you have a kid, might go to college, might be a good place to stay. Now, I know when I went to Northern Arizona University in the 1990s, I actually lived at my parents' cabin at Mormon Lake, which is even further away from Flagstaff than Munns Park. So it's definitely doable. You can work or you can go to school in Flagstaff living in Munns Park. In fact, it could be slightly to your advantage to do that, because again, it's a little bit more isolated if you want a little bit of a smaller town. So population, they are saying 780. Now that's really difficult to come up with the population because a lot of those homes there are not permanent full-time residents. A lot of those are second homes. So, but the official population is about 780 residents. Now, for property prices, home prices, the median list price for a single family home is $649,500, which is less than Flagstaff. We'll get to Flagstaff prices in a minute. Median rent price, $1,995, so close to $2,000 a month for rent. Price per square foot, about $430 a square foot, and the market action index at 32, which puts it kind of balanced, but a little bit leaning still towards seller market, but you know, it's very much shifting. I'm looking right now. Spring is actually a good time, spring and summer, because it seems like a lot of people wait to list their home until spring and summer. So there's a lot on the market. I've just been looking. I've been wanting to buy a place in Mullins Park for several years, so I am constantly watching it because it's one of my favorite places in Arizona. Okay, at number 2 on my list is Sedona. Now, Sedona, I know a lot about Sedona because I live in Sedona. Sedona is actually my permanent full-time residence, which also makes it a pro for buying a vacation home, because there are a lot of people here that are retired or semi-retired, and you could buy a second home in Sedona when you're in your 40s or 50s, and then when you get close to retirement, you could move here permanently and make it your permanent home. The median age in Sedona is a little bit higher, probably 58 in the city of Sedona limits. Here where I am in the village of Oak Creek, it's closer to 60. But some of the benefits at there are gorgeous views here in Sedona. It is one of the most unique topographies in the entire world. Very interesting landscape, lots of outdoor things to do, very temperate climate. It's nice more for year round because it doesn't get quite as cold in the summertime as Flagstaff. So nice climate, lots of hiking, lots of spiritual stuff. The creek is really cool. I like to go to the creek in the summertime and just kind of sit out and watch the water just trickle down, or go to Slide Rock State Park. So there's so many things to do in Sedona. It's a great place to live for your primary residence, but for a vacation home, I would say it's a very good spot. I'm putting it at number 2. Tempted to put it at number 1, but wait till you hear what my number 1 spot is. Now, the biggest con to buying a vacation home in Sedona is the high prices of home, the high real estate prices. Now, there are many choices again in Sedona. You have single family homes, you have townhomes, you have condos, you have manufactured homes on land, you have manufactured homes in a park. Now, if you get a manufactured in a park home, the land lease in Sedona is phenomenally high. You could pay a rental fee on your lot for one of the manufactured home parks, which would be like Sedona Shadows or Sunset Village, of $800 to $1,200 a month based on the lot size and the conditions of the house. So just remember that if you're going to buy a home in a park, super high prices, again, super high. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of detail on the median list price in Sedona. For both zip codes, the median list is $1.585 million. Now, if you want to break that out by zip code, the 86336 zip code is closer to $2 million, and the Village of Oak Creek zip code where I live, just about $1 million. So very high price on real estate. Average price per square foot, again, both zip codes will put you at $563 price per square foot. Median rent, and I said average, I meant median. All these stats I'm giving you are median. Sorry about that. Median rent about $38.50 a month. Market action index in Sedona still at 41, so still considered a bit of a seller's market here in Sedona. So again, let me give you a little bit more info. Sedona here in the Village of Oak Creek, 4,000 above sea level. If you get closer to the city or uptown, 4,500. So that makes it very nice temperature, about 23 inches of rain per year, about 12 inches of snow per year. High in summer, about 92 average. Low in the winter, about 32. So another nice thing about Sedona is the crime rate is low. Violent Violent crime rate, 13.8, which is much lower than the national average of 22.7. Property crime rate, 27.7, much lower than 35.4. which is the national average. I think it might even be slightly lower where I live in the village of Oak Creek. So when you are buying a second home, having a low crime rate, especially property crime rate, is very attractive because you don't want to go away and worry that someone is breaking into your house, or if you have a place way deep in the woods with a cistern, you don't want somebody shooting holes in the water tank. I've heard of that happening before. So Sedona, I have at number 2 in the list. I would possibly put it at number 1, but just because Sedona being such a small town, at number 1, I am putting Flagstaff, Arizona. All right, so let me tell you why I have Flagstaff at number 1 on the list. Pro is that there's lots of stuff to do. I mean, my goodness, you've got Snowball Ski Resort, you've got the cross-country ski place, you have hiking, you have bicycling, like mountain biking, you have side-by-side riding, you've got Lake Mary. You could actually put your boat on Lake Mary. I have been water skiing off Lake, well, I kind of fell. I've tried to go water skiing on Lake Mary, camping, like all sorts of fun stuff to do. Definitely a mountain town, ponderosa pines everywhere. Also a college town. So Northern Arizona, I am an alumnus of Northern Arizona University. To me, I really enjoyed the experience of going to NAU. So another advantage of having a second home in Flagstaff is if when your kids get older and they're going to college, you could enroll them at NAU and not have to pay housing prices, which is kind of the highest part of college these days. I mean, yeah, tuition is high, but if you have to house your student, man, that really runs up very quickly. So one of the cons, though, is that it's very high elevation at about 7,000 foot elevation, high elevation, so thin air. Some people complain about breathing. Very cold in the wintertime, lots of snow, and of course, high prices. That's my list of cons. But I love Flagstaff. I've lived there before. I'm still considering. I go back and forth. In the summertime, I'm thinking, oh, I should live in Flagstaff. And in the wintertime, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm glad I live in Sedona. So some of the things to know about Flagstaff: temperature, again, you get about 21 inches of rain. You could get 80, 81 inches of snow. That's the average snowfall. It can be higher than that. It can be lower than that. We didn't have as much this year. Actually, snowfall came late this year, so I don't know what the total was for the year. Average high in July, about 82, low in the wintertime, about 14. So it does get very cold, but not bad temperatures. Population in Flagstaff right now is about 76,000. It is a town. So again, you have everything you'd ever want in Flagstaff. Some of the small, cabin towns don't have all the amenities, but Flagstaff, of course, has NAU. It has Home Depot. It has jobs. Has the university jobs. It has the Purina plant, which people complain about the smell of the Purina plant, which it does smell pretty bad when you're upwind. You got W.L. Gore, places to work, hospitality industry, lots of jobs, stuff to do, lots of hotels. Of course, hospitality industry has many jobs, restaurants. So again, lots going on in Flagstaff, and a very young crowd, young vibe. Now, the median age is about 25, but of course it's going to be skewed lower because of all the college students. There are plenty of older people that live in Flagstaff too. So let me give you a little bit of information about home prices. The median list price in Flagstaff right now is about $912,500. So still quite expensive to buy a home in Flagstaff. Price per square foot, about $415. Now, we're talking about all the zip codes. So there's going to be some variance in the different zip codes. Rent in Flagstaff about $2,500 a month, and the market action index still at 38. So still a little bit of a seller's market in Flagstaff. Now, I know a lot of you watch some of the housing statistics that are coming out of Phoenix, but I want you to know these Northern Arizona towns are a whole separate animal. And when people call me up and say, I hear the market is crashing, crashing, prices are going down. And Phoenix is way different than Flagstaff and Sedona. We have a finite amount of geography, a finite amount of inventory, and so right now prices aren't crashing. Now, it is a good time to buy because prices are better than they may have been a while ago because there's more inventory and less people competing for that. But again, I'm not sure that's going to change, and that doesn't mean the market is crashing. Still, Sedona, Prescott, and Flagstaff have market action indexes that have put us in the seller market category. So again, and just for your information, that's because we're small towns and there's less inventory, and we are a separate beast from Phoenix. So just keep that in mind. So there were several towns that I had included on one of my previous lists that I've kind of dropped off a list today, and I want you to know why I did that. First of all, Mormon Lake. I do love Mormon Lake. I had a home in Mormon Lake that I sold a few years ago. My parents had a cabin in Mormon Lake since the 1980s. We were actually going up to Mormon Lake since the 1970s. I was there in 1974 when the Mormon Lake cabin burnt to the ground. So Mormon Lake is still a fantastic place, but I didn't put it on the list for a couple of reasons. One is because there are very few homes for sale. There may be 2 or 3 or 4 at any one time, so not a lot of homes to pick from, but there are also a variety of cabins there that are nice. You can get a single family home, you could get a mobile home on land, although there are not that many mobile homes on lands. There are no condos or anything like that. The biggest reason I have dropped Mormon Lake from the list is because about 2 years ago, Aramark bought out the Mormon Lake Lodge, and some changes came that make it a little bit less favorable. One is the hours for the lodge, and some of the stores I think have been reduced since they were previously. But the big thing is a lot of the events that were a big attraction have been canceled. Like the 2 Broke for Sturgis has been canceled. It's been moved to Winslow. I think that's permanent, but I don't know. A lot of the riding horse rodeo events were canceled. Now, they may be bringing them back at some point, but last I heard those were canceled. Also, there was a big event building where people are going for weddings and stuff. I heard they tore that down because of the events being canceled and the less draw, because those were big draws. The 2 Broke for Sturgis was quite an attractive event, and the roping and rodeo events were there since I was a little girl going in the 1970s. So that is one of the reasons I moved Mormon Lake off the list. Now, Lake Havasu City, I removed from the list because in this video I'm thinking more of Arizona towns that people will escape the heat from. So Lake Havasu, again, a great place if you are into the lake and laking activities. But this time I'm thinking of more summer cabin getting away from the heat. I took the White Mountain towns off of the list because of their super high crime rate. So I'm going to give you an example. Pine Top Lakeside has a violent crime rate of 45.6 versus the national average of 22.7. Now that's super high, super disturbing. Property crime rate of 55.4 versus a national average of 35.7. Now, if you look at Show Low not as high in the the violent crime, they got 21.2 versus 22.7, which is basically the same as the national average. But when you look at their property crime, 63.4 score in the property crime versus 35.4 in the national average. And that is very disturbing. Now, I've heard of people who have had cabins in the Show Low area where they have the water haul, big tank. They show up, somebody shot holes and drained their whole tank. Like, that's the kind of stuff you don't want. Or somebody breaking into their cabin. So I've kind of dropped the White Mountains. Although it is a beautiful place and prices are generally better than all of the towns on the list, probably a little bit more in line with what we are seeing in Payson. So that's why I would recommend Payson. Also, it's a little bit harder to get to White Mountains. You actually basically have to go up to Payson and then go east on the 260 for another hour, hour and a half. So if I'm complaining about Payson getting difficult to get to, White Mountains also. But there are other ways to the White Mountains. That's just one of the more common ways. So that's the reason why I dropped Mormon Lake, Lake Havasu City, the White Mountain towns, and also Happy Jack. You'd think that Payson is hard to get to. Happy Jack is harder to get to than both Payson, Heber Beauregard, Pine Top, all of those, because you have to go Payson and Pine, Strawberry, then go to the Junction, Clintswell that takes you to Flagstaff if you want to, and you continue on the winding road. Now, Happy Jack, again, is a beautiful mountain town, but I have dropped it because of the lack of amenities, lack of groceries, and it's the difficulty to get there. Still could be a good choice for you, especially if you like the isolated mountain towns. You could pick some of those, but that's why I dropped them from the list. So that's it. That's my top 5 choices for vacation homes in Arizona. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, please consider giving me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel because I post videos like this every single week. My name is Dawn Dickinson. I am an active real estate agent in northern Arizona. That's all I do. This is not my side hustle. Selling real estate is my only income, except that I get a little bit from these YouTube videos. So all I do is sell real estate and post videos for YouTube. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you back here again next week.